Welcome to episode 2 of /Strange. We officially have a name now. We're just rolling with that. There's a really solid chance that this entire episode is going to be on the
garbage.
Yes. Yes. I was trying to keep the hopes up, but on the Dyatlov Pass Incident. For those of you who don't know, this happened in '59 in Russia, in the Eerie mountain range?
Ural.
You're all not gonna like this story.
Hey.
So essentially the quickest overcap ever before we start going into details is a group of hikers. I think there was 11 originally. I think
it was 10.
There was actually one more.
Oh, was there?
They overslept and missed the train.
Oh.
So that dude lucky.
Lived too.
Super lucky.
That's like when you're getting on a plane and you miss it and then it crashes.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Although I'm pretty sure I'd rather die in a plane crash.
Yeah, same.
Essentially, what ends up happening is 11 to 10 to 9 are who actually finally make the full trip. And they go out on this hike over a very dangerous mountain pass and are never heard from again. And search parties are sent out, and when they find them, only more questions are raised by the entire event.
Still unsolved to this day.
Yeah, well, depending on who you ask.
Well, yeah.
If you ask the Russian government, it's solved.
It was solved,
ish.
A week after it happened.
Like,
if you ask them, they're like, yep. Case closed.
Other than that, though, for the rest of us in the world of the strange, we'll probably never have a final answer. So we're gonna start off here by none of the theories, none of the craziness. We're just gonna tell you the facts and the story, step by step, of essentially everything that happened on their journey.
Go through a rough timeline. So it happened in 1959. February, let's see. The goal of the trek was to reach Otorten. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's a mountain.
If you're not, I couldn't tell you.
Located about 10 kilometers north of the site of where they originally found, so they never did actually make it there. It was... Like Dylan said, it was originally 10 people that were from Ural Polytechnical Institute, and they were all experienced in hiking and ski tours. So it's not like they were novices. They knew what they were doing. My
favorite thing is when you listen to Russian writers talk about this.
Yeah.
They call them very, they're very athletic. They were all athletes. That's how, that's the translation for fit. Or in shape. I don't know why that always just was weird to me. It's just they were athletes.
So
they were athletes.
If you're fit, you're an athlete.
To where in America, athlete is different than being fit.
Have to. Yeah.
It's just a weird.
So January 27th, 1959 is where the story starts. They start their journey to Otorten. At this time, the difficulty level for the trek is estimated to be at most difficult, category 3.
Which literally means nothing to me.
Just
I assume 1 is the easiest and it goes up?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I'm an expert on this. Can't you tell?
Well, I'm legit asking because I don't think any of us know how high does that go?
I'm sure someone will let us know.
Yeah, tell us in the comments.
No idiot. It goes up to 5.
What is Everest?
Yeah.
Is that a 5? And this is a 3? I don't know. 3, it's not the easiest.
So on the 27th, 10 of them. The dude missed his train, so there was 10. On the 28th, the next day, one of the members, Yuri Yudin, is...
Coolest name, by the
way. It's awesome, but it sounds like a villain name. Yuri Yudin.
Yeah, it is a villain.
So he's forced to turn back because he's feeling ill. I think later they discovered he had dysentery or something like that, but he actually recovered. He lived until 2013. So he did not go with them. 2 days after that, January 31st, the group arrives at the edge of a woods of a highland area, and they're preparing to climb. They take food and supplies, and make a cache right near that highland area. So that way, whenever they're coming back, they can grab it, use that for the journey back.
Right, lighten the load and
yeah, just make a stockpile there. February 1st, the group begins to traverse through the pass. Investigators believed later that they were planning on going all the way through the pass and making a camp at the other side, but due to worsening weather conditions, ended up deviating a little bit from the original path. Don't really know why that happened, other than maybe they got confused by it was basically a blizzard that was happening at this point, I believe. They may have gotten confused and they ended up a little west of the original pass, placing them closer to another mountain. I'm going to butcher this. Kholat Syakhl. The Dead Mountain? Or Mountain of the Dead.
Which sounds super, ominous and the Mountain of the Dead. Yeah. But, a better translation is Dead Mountain, which has a completely different meaning. It's called the Mountain of the Dead. That's what we all refer to it as. But the Mincies, who were, wildmen who lived in that area, named it that. And they named it that because there's no wildlife that lives at that height on that mountain range. There's not a lot of growth.
It's barren.
Yeah, there's not a lot of growth, not a lot of life, and that's why it's called the Dead Mountain. It's not ghostly or
everyone
spiritual.
That goes there dies.
Right, yeah.
So for unknown reasons and reasons that we'll never know, they decided to set up camp for that night in that area instead of hiking back down about 1.5 kilometers down that mountain into a more wooded area, so they're a little bit in the open.
Right, yeah, it was only 1.5 miles back to their cache, right? Roughly.
I don't know how far it was back to the cache, but I know that there was
at least to the forest edge on their side of the pass.
Yeah, it was
it was really close.
Well, investigators got there and they're like, why did they set up camp in this just open area where they'd be totally open to the elements with their tent there?
Right.
When there was, even if they got off the path, there was a forested area 1.5 kilometers away. But I guess some people were saying that they didn't want to lose elevation. They didn't want to go back down the mountain the next day, have to climb up where they had already been, I guess. I don't know. But that's February 1st, 1959. And they're never heard from again after this point.
Yeah, because they were sending out telegrams, right? Are there some sort of system there was some sort of communication?
Well, they were not coming back down exactly the way that they came. I think that when they came back down, one of the members told Yuri Yudin, the guy that stayed behind, that he would send him a telegram no later than probably the 12th, I think it was.
Right, and by the 20th is when family was hey.
They're yeah, because they haven't heard from him after the 12th, but they didn't want to start an investigation because they figured maybe they got held up a day or two or whatever. But then, the family on February 20th pressured people around them. They're like, we need to make a search party. So a volunteer search party was created on the 20th. 26th, after searching for 6 days, they find the group's tent on the foot of that dead mountain. The tent is badly damaged, has been cut open from the inside. All of the group's belongings are still inside the tent. Investigators are called in. They see 8 or 9 sets of footprints leading from the tent to the edge of the nearby wooded area, where 2 bodies are found near the remains of a small makeshift campfire away from the main tent. Some of them are shoeless. Some of them have one shoe. Those 2 bodies are dressed only in pajamas, I think, or maybe just a little bit more than pajamas. It's about negative 25 to 30 degrees Fahrenheit at this point.
Yeah.
They eventually find 3 more bodies around a nearby cedar tree with the branches that were broken on the tree about 5 meters high. Speculate more on that later. May 4th. So the original bodies were found on the 26th of February. May 4th. The remaining
so 3 months later.
Yeah. The remaining 4 bodies are found 75 meters away in a small ravine covered in 4 meters of snow, and they had on some of the clothes that belonged to the previous bodies that were found. That's basically the end of the timeline. There's more stuff that they did find, but as far as like what they initially, that's basically from the time they left all the way up until how they were found. That's what they initially found.
Right. So, I mean, just looking at this from face value, things that super stand out right off the bat, like tent cut from the inside. All right? I'm going to like make little mini notes here because that opens up a whole bunch of questions.
Right.
So, it's cut from the inside. Then you have them leaving the area. Leaving their tent.
In a supposed calm manner.
Fashion, right. So it's
like based on the footsteps, they weren't like super far
They weren't
apart.
like jogging. But at the same time, I mean, if it was still blizzard,
yeah,
you might not really be able to
That's
jog
true.
or run. I never really kind of... So they left the tent, they went back down to the woods, but they didn't take anything with them.
Yeah, they didn't take any food, any equipment, any clothes.
Which would make you think that they are scared.
Yeah, or something's keeping
Something
them...
is driving them away, keeping them from staying around to get anything that they would need to, survive. Which is crazy weird. Like that's, so this is already very bizarre that they left everything behind.
But it gets stranger. That's just the very first thing, basically.
Right, this is just the very first initial stuff. From there, they get down and make a fire. Or at least 2 of them do.
Mm-hmm.
None of them were found terribly crazy far from the tent. Which, in my opinion, would make it safe to assume that it's possible that they were all at the bonfire. 2 guys died. They decided to move on. And then 3 more people died. And so then the rest of the group continued on. That's a possibility. Maybe after the makeshift...
where were they going if that happened?
I don't know. I don't know if maybe they thought that they could get back to something else or that was their only chance. I know if you look at the photos along the trip, some of their stops involved cabins or rundown buildings that I think that they used for shelters some nights. So I don't know if maybe they thought their only chance was to get back to those.
Maybe.
It's very bizarre. So you have 2 found and then 3 found, and those 3 were in a line looking as though they were going back towards the tent. And then the other 4 were down about a 3-meter ravine. More than likely, possibly they fell that 9-10 feet.
Well, I know it was eventually the investigators concluded at first before they found the other bodies that fell. I think they were they just died all of hypothermia. But then as they kept investigating, they found some crazy shit.
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the bodies.
Yeah, I know that there's a story of some people who saw the bodies at funerals that said they looked like they had suntans.
Yeah, which
but
is
I don't know that if that's just frostbite damage.
Yeah, I don't know, but you would think that if it was just frostbite, it would have been explained immediately. That's just what the bodies look like when they're frostbitten or whatever.
Right.
So, there were 3 of them. I don't remember which 3 they were with facial injuries. There's 1 with major skull damage and 2 with major chest fractures. But the interesting thing about it is apparently if you were to take a bat and fracture my skull or chest right now.
I think of this often.
Yeah. There would be some sort of fracture internally, and then there would be some trauma to the
outside
skin and the muscle tissue that's over your bone. Well, apparently they didn't have any of that in those areas. So
it was all internal.
So the medical examiner likened it to being subjected to extreme pressure. It's almost as if they were in a pressure chamber and it just like in a vacuum, and it just you kind of crumpled from the inside. The force would have had to have been extremely high, similar to that seen in like a car crash. So they said basically that humans could not inflict that damage.
That's like one of the creepiest things to hear.
Yeah, because it's easy for you just to be like, well, somebody murdered them or somebody did this to them or whatever. But when you hear humans couldn't have done this damage, and it would take the force of a car crash to do it, and they're on top of a mountain with nothing like that around them at all.
Right. And one of the girls was found, and this was interesting, not with her tongue cut out, not with her tongue torn out, like by an animal. The wording that is used is her tongue was removed, which I think is like a very like interesting way of putting it.
Yeah.
Like it's like we can't narrow down exactly why. And there's some different theories on this, but one of the interesting things about this is the lady who lost her tongue was very intelligent. She was very upcoming in the Communist Party. But apparently she was very much quick-witted and forceful and talked back and like would not take shit from people and was very lippy. And so there's some theories around like events of that, like based on her personality and then her tongue magically being gone.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a theory that she was found face down and there was a stream that was underneath her. So people believe that her tongue was basically just eroded or putrefied away.
She was one of the ones that was found like the 3 months later.
Yeah. So that's a possible explanation. But so basically if we break down the facts, we have people in a tent who all of a sudden cut their way out from the inside. They don't open the tent.
Right.
They don't, like, I think you said it was buttons in that time.
Yeah, something. And the fabric they use is very heavy, and in that cold temperature it would have even been heavier. But, like, so you have, like, overlaying fabric to buttons. So you have to, like, pry back this fabric and then unclasp a button. And then we're not talking, like, oh, there was, like, 6 buttons. Like, this was, like, a tight seal for, like a tent to keep out the weather. So you're talking, like, snap, 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 snap. And not buttons like, you know, like you wish your girlfriend's dress was made of, where you can be like...
Yeah, just, like, a button.
Like... So if you're trying to get the fuck out of there, it's not like ideal.
So they cut it open from the inside. So there's something happening on the inside that forced them to leave. They didn't then get out of the tent, look back in and say, let's take all of our shit.
Right.
They said, nope, we're leaving that. We're not concerned about it at all. Either they weren't concerned about it or they didn't have time.
Right.
To get it. And then they're all found in various locations with chest fractures with no trauma on the surface of their bodies. One girl's missing a tongue and her eyes.
There was actually 2 victims with their eyes missing.
Really?
Yeah. But eyeballs are mostly water. And at these type of temperatures, it's not surprising if... I think I read something that, like, at negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit, your eyes can literally burst if you're subjected to that kind of direct cold constantly. Yeah. That
they can do some crazy shit to your body.
2 of the victims' clothing had radiation on it at a higher level than would be expected. So that's thrown into the whole pool of just like, okay.
It's like weird shit. Like, why is this clothing radioactive? Oh, did I mention that I think I did mention this, that some of the bodies that were found later had clothing that belonged to the people that were found earlier? Like it was like a scarf and a shirt or something like that.
Yeah, like so the 2 bodies that pretty much were stripped down to like I believe it was like a white t-shirt, underwear, and socks. I think it's what they came out. So they were essentially in their underwear. Some of their clothing was found on the other people. So either those people died and they took it, or they took it from them. Something along those lines.
So why don't we go over some...
based on like the footprints that they have, which there's a lot of like issue with the whole footprints in general, just because you have a search party and a bunch of people who all kind of converged onto this tent, and then they're backtracking to find out which footprints aren't theirs and following the other footprints, and that's how they like kind of track down where they ended up. But based on what they could tell, there wasn't like other footprints of anything else, any other people other than the 9 hikers that were up there.
No animal footprints in the area.
Right.
So there's a bunch of theories. Figure we were going to go over a few of the most logical ones first.
So yeah, we're going to kind of go through some of the theories. We're going to stay in the realm of real world physics, like no paranormal at the moment, just things that you don't have to explain with unproven information or unproven facts.
Something that would likely cause this to happen, but would explain some of it.
And the first is one of a very popular theory of what happened is that there was an avalanche, and the avalanche covered them. It smothered their tent, forcing them to cut their way out, and essentially just, and then everything is just buried in snow after that point. In which they collected themselves and moved down. Maybe they thought, and if you want to explain why they didn't have their clothes there, maybe it's like there was so much snow that their thought was maybe, hey, let's get back to the tree line. Maybe let's get back to our cache. I don't know what the full plan was. I wasn't there. Yeah. But they thought that was a better idea and that they would have more time than they actually had to survive than trying to dig their stuff out of the snow, and that would be more detrimental digging out of 6 10, because you're talking about a tent. There's one tent that had all 9 of them there. It's a big tent, so if it was completely buried, you're talking easily probably 7 to 10 feet of snow that would drop on top of it. So then trying to dig all your stuff out of there, maybe that's why they left everything. I
guess, yeah. I mean, we can go through the whole theory, but I have some issues with the avalanche.
No. Yeah. Let's like, so do I.
Yeah.
So do I. My first issue is that because of where they were up on the mountain, like you normally see avalanches when you're like at the base or lower area, and then everything comes down. But they were like up there, up this ravine away. They were high enough that theoretically they thought as they didn't want to lose all that distance going back down to camp for the night.
Yeah.
So that's that's a decent way up.
Mm-hmm.
So the likelihood of an avalanche being big enough to bury them at that point of where they were is less and less with every bit of elevation you go up.
Well, and my thing is also if it was an avalanche that was able to completely bury their tent, because we said that their tent had to be buried for them to not have to take their shit with them, basically.
Right.
So if the avalanche is big enough to bury your tent, like it's probably going to like kill you when it comes down on you. If it doesn't, that's fine, but that means you're able to cut your way out and get out. So in order to do that, you have to at least be able to look at the tent, and you would, if it was only like a foot or 2 of snow, you would definitely dig to get your stuff. If it was like 7-8 feet of snow, there's no way you're getting out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know obviously
that's just
makes sense. My guess is it could be some sort of like quicksand sand style thing where you cut, and as you cut, it starts pouring in, and you're trying to get out, and by the time you get out, more and more snow has covered up where you came from.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I don't know. If the tent was solid enough, it might have given them just enough bubble, but the second they cut, it's going to start pouring in. But you would still think that, like, I mean, these are experienced mountaineers. These aren't like me and you up there.
Yeah.
Where we'd be like fucking panicking, and they would just find us huddled together inside the tent, buried in snow, dead.
Yeah.
You know, so you would think that you would have your wits about you to, if you had enough room to kind of cut and get yourself established to try to push yourself out of an avalanche, that you would like try to get shoes on, try to get anything you could get from whatever little bit of bubble you had as quickly as possible. And because like everyone was barefoot, like.
Well, and then if it was completely covered, I feel like it wouldn't be easy to find when you went up there and you were an investigator.
It was weeks later that they found the tent.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know.
True.
And it was coming out of the winter season, more into warmer, right? Because it was February into... When did they finally... What was the date on that first discovery?
They found the tent on the 26th of February.
So
that was...
Right at the tail end of winter, or... Not quite.
I don't know about that region. It might last longer there.
You're right. I'm basing it on where I live, not like Russia. And we do not have the same weather as Russia.
I just don't think that... I don't know.
Well, not only that, but that only explains the tent.
Doesn't explain anything else.
Yeah, and that explains the cutting out of the tent. It doesn't necessarily explain why they left their stuff behind. It doesn't necessarily... It could, depending on what you believe is physically possible by the human body.
And it doesn't explain, like, the trauma without any...
Right, it doesn't explain anything beyond the point of them leaving.
Yeah.
It no longer explains anything. The trauma, the injuries. Quick little fact, like the guys who were found dead, the first two guys that were found dead in their undies, based on their bodies, it looked as though they had literally been putting their hands and feet into the fire, trying to stay warm.
Because they had, like, burns or something?
Because the frostbite had set in and hypothermia had set in to a point that they literally felt nothing in their extremities. And so they were putting them in the flame, trying to warm their bodies. Like, that is crazy to me. Like...
Oh, and we also didn't talk about how there were other hikers and people in the area that were, like, even, like, a day or two before. Or some even say during that night they saw lights in the sky.
Yeah, so there was some rumors, and I figured we'd save that
we
for
do it
the
later.
paranormal.
Yeah, you're right.
Because lights and stuff kind of fall into that category-ish.
All right, so let's move on to the next logical explanation.
So, yeah, we're going to move away from avalanche. I don't buy it. There's not enough meat. I'm a big boy. I need more meat.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go on to... So there's a group of wild men that live in those mountains, and they're not really wild men. They're not like what you would think. Like, they speak Russian or some form of, and
they're just like mountain men.
They're mountain men. They live up in the mountains. They live off the land. They're the ones who named it the Mountain of the Dead or the Dead Mountain. And then the mountain that they were actually trying to go to,
which was called Torton,
is like loosely translates to "Don't go there."
Yeah.
But once again, it's not something sinister. It's something along the lines of like, hey, this is a really dangerous area when it's cold and snowy. You should stay away from it in the winter.
Yeah, but not like don't go there because there's demons, but don't go there because like
don't go there because the witch of the mountain will get you with their frosted tits. It's not
frosted tits.
This area has so many like names of shit that is super like ominous, and it's just no, that's not true at all. So they were actually the initial suspects in the criminal case.
They thought they ambushed him or something?
But they were quickly ruled out. And a lot of people who go over there now, because the Menzies, they're still around. There's still tribes of wild men that live in these mountains. And they've kind of always had kind of like a standing relationship with the Russian government of like, hey, leave us alone, we'll leave you alone, and everyone's good. And they don't really fuck with people. They like people, you can go hiking through these mountains and run into them, and you can have a conversation with them if you speak the language, and move on about your day. They hunt, fish, drink. They're kind of roughly like remnants of like Native American tribes.
Oh yeah, okay, it makes sense. They just keep to themselves.
They keep to themselves. They keep to their ways, and they don't bother anyone. And when they meet people, they're not dicks. You can move through. I mean, obviously, there's probably some dicks in the group. I mean, there's dicks in every group. Brad works for this network. I mean,
yep. Exactly.
So, which is interesting. Like, but they were ruled out almost immediately. Like I said, they couldn't really prove that there was any other footprints there. And, you know, if these people are getting attacked, it's going to be a group of people. Like if like one dude is attacking your tent and you pour out of it and there's 9 of you,
yeah,
you whoop the piss out of that dude.
Well, and also there's going to be footprints leading to your tent. There's going to be like probably blood somewhere. There's going to be evidence of that. Plus, all the trauma that happened, the medical examiner literally said, like, no humans can do this.
Right. And the Menzies are known to use guns, but even if they were like at a distance firing at the tent, there's no bullet hole damage that is accounted in any of the medical logs. They're
obviously terrible shots because nobody gets shot.
Right. If you're shooting at a tent full of people, you're gonna nick somebody. You know what I mean? So there's like no evidence of other people for the most part. So, honestly, if the footprint data is wrong because of how many people like had converged to that spot and they just missed it, I mean, that does seem super logical that a group of wild men would attack them, they would flee, and then they got tracked down over time.
Yeah.
But like I said, the physical damage was supposedly greater than a human being could cause.
Yeah, and they would have like stabbed them.
And in 59, we didn't have any sort of pressure weapons.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the Menzies didn't have a bunch of microwaves to like industrial size to load these people into. Like,
yeah.
Like I said,
buying that.
I feel like it's a fantasy.
Not enough meat on that.
Not enough meat on that one.
It's gonna be like a new thing.
So, next is if you look at some of the photographs of the campsites, they had this makeshift stove that had a essentially an arm sticking out of it. That
it was like a stove. It was a stove pipe that stuck out of the very end of the tent.
Right,
like this.
And see, I already don't like this whole entire theory solely because so you have a stove. It has an L pipe on it to ventilate out smoke, so you can cook inside the tent, but the smoke goes out. Even if that arm falls off, it's sitting at an opening of the tent when you're there. Looks like how they would use it.
Yeah.
It's not like they had like a custom hole cut in the tent and you fed the L bar or L pipe through it. But some people think that maybe that pipe had broken off while they were using it, and based on the small area of the tent and enclosed area, that it would fill with fucking toxic smoke, as all smoke is toxic pretty much.
Yeah, and if it did fill up with smoke, that would explain them cutting their way out in a hurry.
You can't see, you can't breathe, you got to get it aired out as quickly as possible. It does look like if there's photos, you can see photos of the tent being put back up into tent-like proportional area, so you can see, and it does look like there's some punctures as well as the big cuts that they use to get out of there. Which that could be smoke. They try to puncture it first to vent it, and it didn't work, and then they just like, we gotta get the fuck out of here before we all choke to death. Mm-hmm. So that's but like this is just like the avalanche. It's less like the avalanche. Like once you cut out, you're good.
Yeah. You cut out, there's no more smoke.
The smoke clears out. You do what you have to get the stove to stop burning.
Grab your shit, put your boots on.
You grab a bunch of snow, you throw it into the stove, kill the fire to kill the smoke, and then you can focus on trying to maybe patch back up your tent or utilize the tent in whatever way you can to get through the night.
Here's also a thought. To be honest, like I'm not an expert hiker, so like take this for what you will, but like if I'm going up in negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit weather, like I'm gonna bring 2 tents, bro.
Right.
Like I'm not just gonna rely on this tent. Like, this tent's going to be good. Because I know if this tent gets fucked up like this, I'm going to die.
Well, here's something that's really odd to me. And maybe this is just me. And like I said, I'm not a seasoned hiker, mountaineer, snowman, anything. Dude, I would literally be so fucking cold. There's no way I'm not I'm sleeping with my shoes on.
Yeah, no.
Like, I'm going to have my boots up, laced up. I'm going to be, like, ready to go at all times. I'm going to be, like, clothed up a lot. I mean, yeah, I might take, like, my coat off. But, like, I don't know, man. Especially just after this story, there's no way I'm, like, sleeping in a tent.
I'm ever going to be, like, in my jams.
In a tent,
30
right.
degrees.
Never. So, but once again, once you get outside of that, other than maybe some sort of like delusional toxic poisoning from the smoke, causing them to make really poor decisions from that.
But like forward. All of them, not one person was like, "Wait a minute, this doesn't make sense, guys. Let's grab our shit."
Yeah. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all.
I don't buy it either.
A lot of the logical conclusions just start to fall flat when you get beyond
the tent, basically, because it has to A, make them cut their way out of the tent, and B, have them leave their shit behind. Yep. So all the things that we've covered now basically made them cut their way out of the tent, because when they're in the tent, they're going to die. But once they're out, they're okay.
Right, with the exception of the Menzies. But there's no proof that there was anyone there but them. So it falls flat there. It's like... So, animals...
Yeah, but there's no...
One, bears hibernate in the winter. So, but even if they did wake a bear, like I said, we didn't find them missing limbs and having hunks of flesh taken from them.
Yeah.
A pack of wolves would have left prints everywhere.
There was no cuts in the tent that would make sense if it to be like mauled open with...
Right.
You know?
Right. Because I haven't, in any of the stuff I've read or researched or listened to, I haven't heard anyone state that any of the cuts on the tent or damage to the tent was done from the outside in. It's always from the inside out. It was all done
with like a knife.
And they say that they had like, once they got the tent back down the mountain and set up, they had like a professional like seamstress or fabric maker examine it, and they're the ones who came to the conclusion based on the way the thread was cut that it was cut from the inside out. Which I said, I wouldn't know how to tell that.
But an expert would.
I hope so.
They brought in an expert.
I hope so. I'm supposed to be an expert in IT, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I'm just thinking, okay, so maybe it wasn't slashed from the inside, maybe it was slashed from the outside. Like, for what reason? Like, it was just one of the Menzies, like, coming to, like, kill him, but, like, obviously wasn't unsuccessful because there's no knife wounds or anything on them at all.
Right, well, not only that, but, like, they back down to where the fire wasn't, like, 5 miles, right?
Yeah.
So if a group of people attacks your tent and you calmly flee down the hill, you're more or less saying that whoever attacked them made them get out of the tent.
And then left.
And then was like, now you walk to your death in the cold. Like...
Yeah. It was... Let's see. 1 point... Like a kilometer or 2 away, I think, is what it was.
1.5, I think, is what...
Yeah. So, like, not that far.
Right.
Like half a mile.
Well, and like, and then, so then, in like they said, that first bonfire area, which, and this is how crazy deep the snow was, like, not point A to B. So point A, like, where they made the fire, there's like flesh, like, infused into the tree because they climbed the tree. Most likely to get smaller branches from higher up because it'd be easier to break them off than trying to break lower branches. We all know how trees work. And usually the branches lower are thicker and heavier because they've been grown they're the longest, and it gets thinner and weaker as it goes up.
I know the fundamentals of trees.
Yeah, you're aware. You've seen them.
Yeah. You
know the traditional triangle shape of it.
People usually think that I am more of a tree expert because I look like a little bit of a lumberjack when I wear flannel, but
yeah, next episode.
Yeah.
And some people believe when you get down to like some maybe the paranormal or even the logical, that like based on where that tree is, you could kind of get a pretty clear sight back to where their tent was on the hill. So it could have been to also maybe try to see a little bit of if something was there or someone was there. Mm. You could kind of get an idea of if it had gone or not. But I think it's more just to get the lumber. I mean, I think that's probably the only thing you could possibly be thinking at that point.
Yeah, especially if they're making a fire at that point. And the fire was tiny, basically. It wasn't like a big bonfire or anything.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, I assume it wouldn't be... The fact that they were able to make a fire based on this situation... Because if they didn't grab their shoes, it's not like they grabbed any sort of, like, fire, like, aid equipment, like...
Imagine trying to make a fire when you're standing in snow... in socks and it's negative 30 degrees Fahrenheit.
And it's possibly still snowing and blizzarding, so you have to like huddle around to stop. Dude, no. I just...
Not buying that.
I would bury myself and just go to sleep and just be done with it. Like,
just give up.
Done. I surrender.
So not buying the...
Animals? No, I don't even feel like animals... I have it on the list of logical because people talk about it, but I find it completely irrational. Like, there's no sort of signs of animal attack on the bodies. There's no animal footprints. And animals aren't, like, fucking covert stealth killers.
Well, like, cats might be, but there's no cats in that area.
Even so, a cat can't walk through snow without leaving footprints.
Yeah, true.
So, but cat would be the ninja of the animal kingdom. Mm-hmm. So, most likely. The last, and I think... the most logical in my book is government. I don't know about you.
I think
this is where I tend to lead the most towards. And I don't know if it almost seems more to me that more logical that they weren't even killed on the mountain. They were killed elsewhere and put back on the mountain. A lot of the damage that they have, a lot of the stuff they have, it seems like... I know some people think that maybe there was some sort of missile testing going on the mountain and the government fucked up, killed these kids.
Yeah, that's kind of...
and then covered it up because they...
kind of what I was thinking, because like, it was Cold War. They were testing weapons.
Now, I do know that, like, based on the type of missiles that, like all the stuff that was going on then, that there isn't any, like, facilities or bases. Like, I think 100 miles was the closest facility or base, so it's, like, it's kind of far away, but it is a very, like, not very populated area, so that's usually where you blow up stuff.
Explain the lights, too.
Well, it explains some of the light flares that you possibly saw to an extent. Not Dyatlov, the 40-year-old.
Let's trying to find his name. He's 38. His name is Semyon Zolotarev.
He was an odd character. He was like 40. Everyone else on the trip was in their like low 20s. And then there's this one 40-year-old that's with him. But he was ex-World War II, fought in Stalingrad, was a decorated soldier. You know, he was shit. So he would also know what the fuck explosions sound like and how close they would be based on sound alone. To where, like, if they were in their tent, all of a sudden you hear what sounds like a missile and explosion, and this dude starts yelling, "Get up, go, 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 we gotta go," you're probably gonna get the fuck out of there thinking that you're being attacked.
Yeah.
Or that, or the government is testing, like maybe this military's testing. And that getting out of there as quick as possible, leaving everything behind, would be a better scenario to being blown the fuck up. And if they did get hit by a missile in general and were killed, then it would explain a lot of that internal trauma. So I assume the impact of a car and the impact of the force of a missile, like an explosion, just that force would be enough.
That would explain that. And then didn't necessarily have to damage the skin or muscle on the exterior. It could just literally, the force could just crush your bones.
Right. They could be far enough away that they don't really get hit by the fiery explosion portion, but the shock wave alone, especially since they're so cold and brittle at this point, that their bodies aren't in their like prime defensive position,
Yeah.
You can't even like tense up because you're so cold. Like your muscles don't have that. On top of that, some people so there's the missile theory within the government, which would explain a lot. Kind of. Like I said, there's still signs of anyone else there. There isn't signs of anyone else at any of the sites where the bodies are found. So
apparently, I'm just doing some more reading here. Apparently, Zolotarev, the dude who's 38, whenever he left the tent, he took his camera.
That's right. I do remember
so
that.
He was the only one. He took a camera, but he didn't take anything else. But he wanted to try to obviously capture something on camera.
Which I'm pretty sure none of his footage has been seen. None of the shots that we have out there are from his camera. I could be wrong on that. Correct me by all means.
Now
we're getting into this. We're not masters of how to do this yet.
Well, and if it was smoke from the stove or whatever, like why is he gonna take his camera? Everybody knows what happened.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So, and some people think that maybe there's or I think this is more personal on the government military side of things. That there would be some sort of hidden military base there that we don't know about.
Yeah.
And that maybe they stumbled too closely or saw something they weren't supposed to. And because here's one of the things, like once all the bodies were found, they literally, this is a good photo, by the way. It shows like the distance of everything.
Yeah.
So
we're looking at a photo basically here that shows where the bodies were found.
Yeah, I'll put it up.
The tent. Okay.
So yeah, so it shows the tent at the top, so we can just talk about it like it's on screen.
Okay.
You see the two bodies down farther by this tree
that were found first.
Those are the first two bodies that were found. And then if you go back up towards the tent, those three bodies in a line that look like they're climbing back towards the tent, those were the next three that were found. And oddly enough, they found the very front body, which was one of the females. And then they found the back body, which was Dyatlov. And then the guy in the middle, Slobodin, they actually found him like a week later. Because that's how much deeper in the snow he was.
Interesting.
All right, and then the other four, like I said, were found farther down. One in a stream, one I think two of them were actually technically in the stream area, and they had dug like a little hollow out, like snow cave essentially to try to protect themselves from the wind. None of it helped. So I mean, and this just looks, just like glancing at it, it almost looks like they all made it to the tree line. And then either these two gentlemen passed away by the fire that they thought that they would be able to use to survive the night or not. And essentially what ended up happening was they disagreed on what their next move should be. And three decided to go back towards the tent for shelter. And the other four decided to try to go back to wherever they could to get out. And there was some sort of, like, that's kind of what it looked like just looking at this picture.
But I guess it would be, I mean, if the government thing was true and they stumbled upon something and they were killed and then it was a cover-up, like, there would be no mention of any of that in the reports.
Any of what?
Any mention of any of that. Like, even, like, say there was extra footprints because they were taking them back.
The paperwork would be super neat. Right. Well, and people would say, like, well, like, if it's the government, why would they just, like, you'd never find or hear from these people again? But the issue that I have with that is, and this is why I lean towards there being something military established up there, is that if you have something up there that you don't want people to know about, if they don't find these bodies, people are going to be searching these mountains forever.
True.
Looking for signs.
And, like we said in the beginning, I believe it was, let me check my facts here, but I believe it was they were never heard from again, and the rescue operation was not launched until the 20th, even though everybody was basically saying, like, hey, we need to get a rescue operation going. And they were, like, super reluctant to do that until the 20th. Like, they did it late.
Right, well, and I think the 20th seems super late since the last time they heard from him was the 1st. But like you said, he was supposed to check in no later than the 12th.
Yeah.
So no one even started really worrying until the 12th.
But from what I understood, that, like, it was pressure from, like, their friends and relatives that actually made them go. Because they weren't even going to go.
Right, because initially they thought, because this was during, people were fleeing from Russia because they didn't have faith or belief in the Communist Party. And this mountain range and going west through it was a way to get out of Russia. Mm. So I know there was some initial stuff where people thought, like, oh, they must be, like, traitors to the country and they were trying to flee when they didn't come back or we weren't reporting in all of a sudden when they were supposed to,
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any truth to that. And maybe that was the government's first attempt. Like, oh, this is what happened. They put that lie out there. Mm-hmm. And if we've learned anything from governments like the MK Ultra, like all the stuff that we know for true that governments have done to their people, this isn't like that bizarro world of a thing. Even though government conspiracies fall into the conspiracy category. Mm-hmm.
So
also something interesting about this, and this is after the fact, one of the leads on this, like, they essentially closed this case the day after they found the remaining 4 people. Like, that's how quickly it was closed.
And then
which is weird because that's not even enough time to really fully get them off the mountain, examine them.
Yeah. They
closed down the area for 3 years.
Right, which would be enough time to disassemble whatever you had up there.
Relocate it. Right. I mean, I out of everything, like, we haven't gotten to the paranormal stuff yet, but out of everything, it's very clear to me that the government, military-ish, even maybe the KGB. Thank you. KGB. Because the KGB and the government were kind of like equal powers around this. Like these things seem way more possible because it says there weren't any more footprints, but that's one of the guys who closed down the report essentially took all the paperwork with him, told the local person that this is what happened, this is what he needed to put in his report, and then took the rest of the paperwork back to.
So he's like, "You're going to write this.
This is what's happening."
Write this.
Apparently, not only that, there's an interesting tidbit that I found that I haven't done a whole lot of research on. So if it's wrong, I apologize. But apparently, some time period around the 6th of January. There was a criminal report on this incident submitted. And then it magically vanished, and then they went and didn't do anything, and then they went for a search party when they were missing. And apparently, like when they went back, it's like, oh, it was just a mistake. It was wrong names or wrong paperwork.
So 6th of February, right? Or
January.
Because January,
I'm sorry, February. I'm sorry, you're right, February. Okay. 6 days after the last time they had made contact with anyone, like the last time they were heard, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So, like I said, I don't know 100% the full facts of that, but that's something I'd recently come on to and it was like instantly recalled and like, no, that was just a mistake. Mm. But then these people are all found dead, within them.
Well, the fact that this happened in Russia, like Russia at that time was not like,
from everything I understand,
the most famous for like not being corrupt.
Like, from what I understand, if you needed something kept secret, you better hope you're the Russian government because they keep their fucking secrets.
Yeah. So that's a possibility. That's the last of our logical possibilities.
That we know of or have. If you have more, please email us, tweet us, comment. Now we step into the strange.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't even know where we're at on time.
Well, we're probably like way over. I don't know exactly where we're at on time either.
Right, because your thing measures in beats. I ain't got time for that bullshit.
Let me see if I can figure it out. No, I don't know.
Nope, I have no idea. It's 120 beats a minute.
So let's not sit here and try to do beats per minute.
You want to do math, guys? 16,000.
16,000 bars, 120 beats per minute.
How many beats in a bar?
120 beats per minute would be 4 beats in a bar. Dude, no.
No.
Let's not do this.
So let's just move into the paranormal.
Let's just kind of go through it. Decently, like.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna. There isn't as much.
Yeah.
But so the first is like we talked about. There's reports of odd and weird lights, and being that we're in the forest, this naturally leads to the assumption of aliens. Mm-hmm. Which don't get me wrong. Hovering, flying crafts. Maybe they were sucked up into them. Maybe not. Who knows? I like how just you instantly have gone to this like mindset where you're like,
it's like this.
I'm checking out for the next 10 minutes. I don't even.
It's like maybe, but I just feel like there's no evidence other than like the lights to be like, yeah, it's aliens.
Well, and the damage to the bodies could be way more easily explained by an extraterrestrial force because extraterrestrials can have anything.
That's true.
There's the anything box.
Yes, but everything could be explained by that.
Aliens. I don't have the hair for it.
Yeah.
But it could explain why there's no tracks. It could explain the fear and urge of trying to get the fuck out of the tent when there's just these giant hovering lights that are closing down on you. And why you would and if you cut your way out of a tent because of fear and you look up and there's a giant flying fucking ship of some sort, that's another reason to get the fuck out of there, but not gingerly walk down the mountain.
Walking case.
Which I said, like, that could maybe be misleading because if it was deep enough, then it's going to be hard to run down a mountain in, fucking 5 feet of snow.
Yeah.
And it could be that they were eventually then tracked down by the aliens or killed by the aliens and placed around the mountain in such ways. It's definitely like paranormal world. I don't buy it. I don't think there's nearly enough evidence. There isn't like, some of the guys had signs of fighting. They had bruised fingers and stuff like that, which could have been done to each other. It could have been done with maybe government people.
Yeah.
It's not, there's just not enough there for me to really back aliens. There's no like bizarro world damage done to the bodies. It was not, according to the coroner, it couldn't have been done by human, but it's not like it couldn't be done by. It's not like it was done by something unexplainable.
Right.
It's not like their blood was liquefied and turned into mint jello. Like, what I mean? It wasn't something so fucking bizarre.
It was just fractures. Yeah.
Like, what I mean?
Like something impossible.
It wasn't something that would, like, require such advanced technology or something of that nature. So, like, I don't buy it. Bigfoot, or a Yeti in this case, since it is snowy. Mm-hmm. Dude, you're such a non-believer. Like, I can't even say it. I can't even say, I'm like, Bigfoot, and you're like,
I'm just like,
okay. Mm-hmm. Which could explain some of the damage. Because that's a non-human force.
True.
Unless Bigfoot is human.
I would have thought there would have been trauma, though. Like if Bigfoot
like I said, though,
punches you in the chest.
Yes, unless, like we were talking, when you get hypothermia, your blood essentially retreats to the center of your body.
Well, then it could be...
And without the blood and actually frosted skin, you might not show signs of external damage.
But then, wouldn't that mean it could also be caused by a human?
Possibly. But I don't know if a human could drive enough force to do that much damage.
That's true.
Because they're still going to be faced with the same elemental effects. Maybe not to the same extreme because, maybe they just got out of their hovercraft.
I'm willing to, give it a chance, but...
But here's the thing. There's no signs of a Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
There's no Bigfoot prints. There's no fur. There's no... I don't know fully how Bigfoot attacks, but I feel like the damage would be way more severe. Now, there was some damage done to the faces. There was one person's nose was fuckered. What are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at the idea of Bigfoot. No, it's cool. I mean, it's possible. It is possible. There's gonna be people that are like, fuck that guy. He doesn't believe in Bigfoot, but he believes in aliens and all kinds of other shit.
I don't think you buy any of the paranormal in this case. In this particular case.
Well, I just don't see any evidence for it.
Right.
Not like we saw evidence for the other, like some of the logical explanations do in fact explain why they would have reacted in a certain way, and there was some evidence for it.
If you hear Bigfoot Yeti yell, which that's like one of the things Yetis yell, and you hear that shit outside your tent.
Mm-hmm. I'm staying the fuck in my tent.
Are you?
Yeah.
I mean, it might come down to like a decision of fight or flight. And you might choose flight.
I mean, I would have to be overcome by fear because I know if I'm slashing that shit and running, I'm going to die anyways.
Maybe. No, I agree. Like I said, but I mean, I would think I'd be more inclined to cut and run at the sound of something non-human than the sounds of humans outside the tent.
Me too.
Because with humans,
That's
I'd
true.
be like, "Hey,
I'd be like, hey guys,
hey, what's going on? Like, you guys friendly? What are you doing on the mountain?" So I'm gonna quickly go over this. There were some stories around that time in the areas, not the lights in the sky. There was a guy who worked in a mine or a quarry. I think there's a big difference between a mine and a quarry.
Yeah, because a quarry is
like a valve,
like a hole into the earth, like this way to get out stone. I think a mine is to mine coal and tunnels and shit.
Yeah. And while he was there overnight, I don't know if he was the security or whatever, saw a light. It looked like it broke into smaller lights. He said it looked like flashlights kind of like bouncing in the night, the way that you would see like if a bunch of people were running through fields with mag lights. A little ba 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 ba. And
is that the mag light noise?
That's the new commercial. But then as he ran down and he kicked on some lights of the quarry to make it look like more people were there because he thought it was like thieves coming to try to steal some of the minerals and stuff. Looked back and he just saw the one light again. But then as he was looking at it, he saw it break into more. He ducked away for a second, looked back up, one light broke into more again. And this is like a single dude's account. He ended up getting the hell out of there eventually because he said he was just struck with fear from this object. And then whatever this object was. And then he found another seasoned mountain person who lives out in the woods, like a ranger, who essentially had identical event happen to him involving the same thing. So there is a theory out there involving the orb light of death.
The orb light of death.
The lightly orb of death. Which, like I said, if you look at the final...
It makes the noise... Ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba.
Only when it breaks apart into multiple pieces and they're running.
Oh.
So it's to lull you into a false sense of confidence. Like, ooh, something good's coming. So, whatever this magnificent orb is, and one of the things that, leads to this is, or people having somewhat belief in this is, one of the last photos on Dyalov's camera looks like two, orbs of light.
Yeah.
And black, but that could be literally anything.
And if you just Google last photo Dyatlov Pass,
yeah, I'll put up the picture right here.
Yeah,
it literally just looks like two orbs of light. It honestly almost looks like a fire.
Yeah,
because the one on the left looks like smoke.
Yeah,
and you know how the light dances through smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's a demon, and those are his eyes.
Yeah.
that these lights showed up, filled through the tent. Everyone was filled with fear and dread. Cut their way out, took off running. That's and then you go down to the tree line event where they climbed the tree to see if the orb was still there and if they could get back to the tent. And it would explain why maybe people had disagreement, like, no, I'm not going back to that fucking tent, not with that thing there, and why there was a split up there.
Yep.
Or maybe that it did find them eventually, whatever this thing is, and it caused the damage to them. It's really out there on the end of craziness. It intrigues me solely because there's these two other eyewitness accounts of similar events from two separate people who don't know each other. I don't know how accurate that is because people do play off of each other.
Yeah.
So, I'd be, I mean, there's just my issue with a lot of the paranormal stuff is I would love to be able to prove and us to be able to one day go, yes, this is exactly what happened. And when it comes to being aliens or Bigfoot or orb of light or just another minor little one, is that one of the guys got into a huge argument like the 2 nights before the final night, the night of the cutting, and there's some photos of him that look a little and so people think demonic possession or he was just crazy in general.
Yeah.
And maybe
that could be also an explanation where it's just some dude's insane, like, and just aggressive, starts fighting people trying to get out of the tent because he has a knife pulled or something,
Right. But I mean, still, I just don't buy that either because it's 1 versus 8.
Yeah.
Just put them down. And these are all fit and shaped people.
Well, especially the World War II veteran.
Unless he's the one who was crazy.
He's the crazy dude.
Which is very possible. He's seen some shit. And I mean, so when it all comes down to it, if it wasn't government, if it was something very simple, which, what is it? KISS? Keep it simple, stupid?
Yeah.
It is 100% possible that the missing tongue is a red herring and it was done by the stream or nature in general, along with the eyeballs. The radiation, which we didn't talk about a whole lot, but the 2 guys' clothing that it was on worked for companies that...
It was like a chemical company or something.
One was, I think, like some sort of missile something related with, like, that side. And they both worked for companies that essentially worked with radioactive material.
Yeah.
And the amount found on their clothes wasn't like double the safe amount. It was like hundredth of a particle or 100 particle parts over, the 5,000 limit of what they considered safe.
Yeah, and it wasn't like crazy or anything like that. And there would be reason to believe that it would be radioactive based on where they worked. So,
I mean, I think that's like one of the big questions. Like, it's like that you always have to keep in mind here because as you go down through the points, it gets harder and harder to explain.
Yeah.
But I mean, like I said, it's logical that something happened. Avalanche, smoke filled their tent, a fire. Maybe it was a fire, and that's why they cut their way out and got away from it, and they assumed everything was going to be damaged or destroyed, and they started making their way as opposed to waiting for this fire to go out or whatever. And they made their way down the mountain, and they huddled around a fire. 2 of the guys, just didn't do well and fell ill and died quicker. And the others took their clothing. They had a disagreement on which way they should go. The 3 tried to go back to the tent. Didn't make it. They just couldn't make it. It was much harder to get back up that mountain at this point. The other 4 fell off a 9-foot ravine. Maybe that's, hitting your head on the ice or whatever with your skin and being cold and stuff like that. Maybe that caused the internal damage without showing so much of the external. And maybe it's just that simple and there's nothing bizarre or crazy here. It's just looking at it like the beginning to the end. Like, I can buy... I may be less worried about the weird damage to the bodies. Because of the bizarre conditions. This wasn't like a bunch of people hanging out at room temperature, like on a 30th floor building that have damage that's like equivalent of being hit by a car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is like people outdoors in the blistering cold, colder weather than most of us have probably ever experienced or ever will experience in our lives. And what the body goes through and how it reacts to being thrown down 10 feet. Because like we were talking earlier, you can fall over and hit your head just right and fucking die.
Yeah, you can die just from falling on the ground. Just from a standing position.
Right, from 6 foot high.
Happens all the time.
So what all could happen because of that, because of some of the bizarro factors around with the government and everything after, I honestly lead more towards something related with the military government. Whether they accidentally killed these kids, they took them for some sort of testing, or they were part of some sort of testing.
I think I lean that way too. But I don't think it was an intentional thing as much as they were probably testing a weapon. They end up fucking testing them and went out to check the wreckage and they were dead. And they're like, shit. So.
And then they set up some bizarre scenario that would keep people guessing and wondering for a while. Because like I said, yeah, they could have just, hid the bodies and never found them, but whatever was going on, it's going to drive more and more people to investigate. Granted, this has drove a lot of people to investigate over time. But instead of us going out there to find something, we're going out there trying to find answers to questions that are already posed, which is like a huge difference. We're not going out there looking for clues to figure out what happened. We're going out there trying to figure out why this happened.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Is that like they are controlling the narrative and what people are out there searching for. So therefore, people are going to find what they're not looking for. For the most part.
I don't know if I'd go that deep with it personally. I think they may have just.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know if they looked.
That's the only way I can explain why they would make it so weird and bizarre and crazy, as opposed to just hiding the bodies or just leaving them all huddled in a mess. Like if they did accidentally kill them, like they made it like some bizarro scenario. Like you could have just left the tent open.
Actually, that would be evidence to me to support that it was not military.
What would be?
Like the fact that it was like slashed open from the inside and the bodies were found at like different time periods and all this stuff.
Makes you think not military.
It makes me think not because.
Right. That's what I'm saying. That's why the military would do that. That's why they set it up this way and they didn't do something simpler. They made it very bizarre, very strange.
But if they made it simpler, people would just be like, they just died. And then their investigation would be over.
Yes and
no.
You see
what I'm saying?
Yeah, I understand that, but I guess the main problem with that is that you can't, these are all seasoned people. These people know how to survive in the wilderness. They know how to handle these things. So the simpler it is, the more questions that also raises.
Yeah, but I disagree. Because I feel like the simpler you make it, the more likely people are to just accept it and be like, they just died. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know in this case.
Because this is attracting a lot of attention.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if the military wanted it to be I don't know, man. Maybe it's not military at all. Maybe something crazy did happen, and the military stuff all stems from.
It's crazy.
Them going to try to figure it all out because if you're trying to make it even weird and bizarre or make it simple, whichever way you feel would be best to do it. Because I mean, obviously, look, we have two different theories of why each way would be better.
Yeah.
And to keep the trail off the government. But at the same time, then the government closed down the area and didn't let anyone up there for 3 years.
I know.
So
they could probably be like,
which
well,
makes it
dangerous.
super fucking suspicious right there.
It does, but they could probably just write that off as being like, well, people died up here and it's super dangerous, so we don't want people going up there.
Yeah,
that would be their. You know what I mean?
But this all comes down to the weird and bizarre Area 51 shit, where it's like, no, this base doesn't exist. And then 30 years later, all right, yeah, there's a base there. But it's nothing crazy or weird. What?
Yeah.
Like, you lied about it. Like,
Yeah.
how come, like, there's all these signs of, like, I'll shoot you if you cross this line.
Like, why? Yeah, like,
You know what I
that's
mean? Like,
a whole different thing. Where
no, I know,
like,
but I'm just saying, like, the government does shit in
true.
such a dumb way sometimes.
Yeah, but like, why did you? If there's nothing crazy going on there, then why did you lie about it in the first place?
Which was like that's what I go back to, like, my Bizarro World scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, at times with some of this stuff, it feels like the government feeds it to be crazy, because what it does is, because, like, most of these reports and pictures didn't come out till the 90s.
Yeah.
Because the government just wouldn't release anything.
Yeah.
And that's why it's even more similar to, like, an Area 51 style thing.
Yeah, and it's like, why, if it was just like some hikers that went up into the woods and then they just like died of like a unknown compelling force, is what the examiner said. Why keep all the photos secret until the 90s? Like,
Right.
why not?
Right. That
doesn't make
but
sense.
if you spin some crazy story and you create this elaborate thing, that, yeah, it's going to draw attention to it, but it's also going to instantly put it over in this category where the people who are, like, die hard into believing in aliens and Bigfoot, who are instantly like, this is what it is, it's aliens, it automatically discredits the entire story. Even if, like, all you need is, like, a percentage of people who are out there spouting about aliens and Bigfoot instead of looking more deeper into, like, the government and facts like that. And it instantly gets put into a category of stuff where the majority of just your normal day-to-day people are like, I don't care. That's stuff the crazy alien believers talk about.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? So you instantly, like, discredit the whole scenario
Yeah.
in a way that's, like, you know, which, you know, and that's a big thing in the alien community, which is a whole other thing where the government plants stories in order to do things to essentially make...
So that gets down to like a rabbit hole that I don't really...
That's a Bizarro World rabbit hole, man.
I can't go there because it's too... it's just too implausible to me, but that's a discussion for a different time.
What's really odd to me about that whole thing is it's super implausible.
Yeah.
But it also makes complete logical sense. It's just really weird to me. But that's...
We're at 2,300 bars.
Yeah, 2,300 bars. So that's pretty much... I mean, I think we covered our personal thoughts.
Yep.
A lot of that. I think we both stemmed towards government or military action, whether it was accidental or not.
Yeah.
He said they accidentally hit him with a missile. Maybe these kids...
Jeez, I shouldn't be laughing, but just the way you phrased it. Accidentally hit somebody with a missile. Like, how does that happen? Dude?
Maybe all these kids were considered, like, upstanding members of, like, the party and everything. They could have... Maybe they went up there to do work with the government, and the hiking trip was a ruse.
Yeah, maybe.
And something happened, and they're like, shit, now we gotta cover our tracks here. I don't know. That seems the most logical possibilities to me. I would love to hear what you guys think. Overall, whatever caused these kids to cut out of their tent and flee into the chilling death winds of the night, I think that's the biggest question for me that needs to be answered. I think once you can answer that, the rest of it can fall in place. Because I'm more concerned about... Yeah.
Like, why did you leave the tent?
Why did you cut out of the tent and flee, leaving everything behind? Like the weird damage to the bodies and all that stuff... I don't even care as much about that.
I think we're both willing to accept that those happen in the environment somehow.
That they could have been, even though a coroner checked them out. We're talking about, like, the 60s, like 1959.
Yeah.
Not like 2016 or 17 forensic, like, evidence. We're talking about, you know, it's way less, it's way different. So I don't know. That's what really makes this truly, like, chilling and bizarre to me.
Yep.
And I don't know if we'll ever know the answer.
I don't know if we'll ever know the answer either, but won't stop us from talking about it. Email us. Hit us up.
Down below you'll find all of our links. So if you have theories that we missed, if you want to correct us and tell us we're fucking wrong about something,
I'm sure there's a couple things.
Hit us up. Or if you just want to become part of this conversation and ask us anything that we know, because we've both done some pretty good research on this, we'll hit you back. Email, Twitter, comment. Hit the follow and subscribe button. It really helps us out, guys. Check out our other /network shows with the /podcast or /bracket.
Yep. /podcast is our comedy one that we do. And we have a bracket on that where we do Sweet 16 bracket competition of all kinds of different stuff.
All different kinds of stuff. more than likely, next episode of Slash Strange will be the Mandela Effect, plus maybe something else. We wanted to do that one with this tonight, but we just knew we knew coming in. There's so much to this that a lot of these might end up being one and done episode type things.
And if we really wanted to get super, we could have just gone on and on and on about this.
If we didn't stop ourselves, we could talk for hours. But I'd rather get like some sort of expert on the Dyatlov Pass on the show at some point and talk to them with our ideas and thoughts. And
do a Skype or
instead
something.
of you just listen to us ramble in circles and disagree. So, but hope you enjoyed. And until next time, man, /strange.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right.
Shut up. Good night, everyone.